This camera here is the Mamiya C33, and today we're going to be talking about all the interesting features of this camera as well as how to use it and the history about it. Produced from 1965 to 1969, the Mamiya C33 Professional was the second in a series of 3 Mamiya TLRs, succeeding the Mamiya C3 and preceding the Mamiya C330. This camera right here in front of us has two 80mm lenses on it, which is attached in one single lens assembly. Easily the most significant feature of this camera is the fact that there are two lenses on the front. The reason for having these two lenses is there is not a need for a moving mirror assembly. The image in your viewfinder is shown through this top lens here, while the image is taken through this bottom lens. This lens current on the camera right here can go up from an f2.8 to an f32, and the shutter on this is actually attached to the lens itself. One of the most interesting parts about this camera is here in the lens itself. The aperture is adjusted on the side of the lens here, and on this 80mm goes from f2.8 all the way up to f32 on the top by the move of this little dial. On the other side, our shutter is also adjusted on the lens. This one only goes to 1/500th of a second, but goes all the way down to a bulb setting. Now, while it does only go down to 1/500th, when shooting in bright light, remember you always have this aperture, which goes all the way up to f32. Now, when you saw this camera, you probably thought, I don't see a viewfinder anywhere. That's because it's collapsed in here. You just reach up to the back of this, and it pops right up. And you can see right there, looking down in, that's our view right there being projected from this top lens up into and onto a screen in the bottom. Right up here, there's a little panel on the front, which when you push on, a little magnifying glass pops out. Now this little magnifying glass is more important than you think. This is used to focus the camera and to make sure that you're getting everything exactly on point. Focusing is done through these two small knobs up on the front. Just a span of each knob on either side, and the bellows on the camera are extended, focusing it in. Now, one of the things the Mamiya C33 was widely regarded for was its ability to take pictures of objects so close up, which is rare on these TLR cameras, due to this bellowing out feature where the lenses can get closer that way, allowing closer focus. Now, another interesting feature of this camera is here on the side of it. As the bellows extend out, so does a little graph showing focus for different lenses, ranging from the 55, the 250, 180, 135, and 105. Now if we flip the camera around, on the other side we have this dial right here, and this is showing us for the 65mm and the 80mm, which are much more popular lenses on this camera. Again, you can barely see that inside here there is two little dials right here, which you can see it moving there, move back and forth, showing me the focus distance I am at. While this camera may seem very complex, taking a picture on it is not so. Step 1, on the right side of your camera, you'll find this lever. Flip it outward and wind it clockwise until the lever stops you yourself right here. Lever stops, and then you wind it backwards until it stops again, and then it flips down. Now while we were doing that, this shutter right here, the shutter assembly, was cocked forward as well as the film was advanced. Afterward, right here is your shutter release, and you just pull down and your picture is taken. Now talking more about the camera itself and features on it, we have this right here on the left side. We have this dial which switches between lock and unlock. And what this is doing is inside here, I'll show you in a little bit, there's a panel that is flipping up and down to block this lens. On the side here, this is a little dial, it's currently set to 80, that you can set around to 135, and other settings like that to remind you what lens you have attached. Here on the top is where you can set the ISO of your film. That's just to remind you this camera does not have a light meter, so if you are taking pictures, I use a light meter mode on my phone. But you can also buy a handheld one. But remember, this doesn't have one. Right here it's called a cold shoe. You can mount flashes here, but they'll not trigger automatically. If you need your flash to trigger, here in the front is a flash sync port. This pops off, for a cord to plug in there and plug into your flash. That'll tell the flash when to go when the picture is taken. Now getting inside the camera is pretty simple also. Here's the back of the camera here. Here's a little thing to look down to see what number is on the back of the film, to see how far you are, even though there is a frame counter on the side. But to get in, we have this little dial right here. You can probably not see it, but there's an arrow. You spin the dial till the arrow is straight up and down, and then you pull the dial over, and the back opens right up. On the inside here, film is loaded differently than the 35mm camera. You will take your spool of 120 film, and you'll place it in the bottom and stretch it across to this upward spool on the top. Well, this right here may seem familiar. Here's the different part. When you're winding your film, it winds across to here, and when you're done, you don't wind it back. The film is all wound over to here, so you just keep winding until it's all over here. You remove it, and the film has a little label on it that you lick and stick shut, and this is actually the spindle for my last roll of film. I moved it to the top. My next roll of film I'll place in the bottom. It'll have a spool under it just like this. It'll wind everything to here. I'll bring this spool off, and then I'll bring this empty spool up to the top again to take more pictures. Now when I was talking about the unlock and lock feature, under here you can see the circle right there. That is the lens. Now if I flip the dial right here, you can see this panel opening and closing. This is for if you had film in here and you wanted to switch lenses, making sure not to expose the film. I hope you guys liked this video. If you have any questions about the Mamiya C33, just drop a comment below and I'll be happy to answer them. If you learned something from this video, hit that like button. If you didn't, hit that dislike button, but leave a comment, tell me why. And if you'd like to see more camera content and stuff like this, make sure to hit subscribe. Have a nice day.